Go live.
All right.
We're live, guys. Have fun.
Cool. Thanks so much. Appreciate all the help. I'll see you soon. All right. You good now, sir? Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for coming in. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. We're just setting a few things up, but this is a presentation for Celo. There was a mix up with the rooms. If you're here for StarkNet, that's not here, but I hope you're all here for Celo. So I just wanted to let you know. Basically, this is day 2 of presentations we had yesterday. Happy to see some of you came back and stuck with us, but there's also some new people. So welcome. One thing I do have is this big slide deck here with a lot of resources, a lot of links. You can find it at bit.ly/Celo Miami. You could also get the QR code here. And the idea is that not quite as much as yesterday, but today there are going to be some links in the presentation that are useful to get the guides and things that'll help support. So with that, I guess I'll start the slideshow. For anyone who wasn't here, just one thing we just like to say is welcome to everybody. It's try to include founders, designers, developers, anybody who wants to build on Celo. It's inclusive of everybody who wants to join. And in some cases, you might not be a developer, but you have great ideas. Sometimes you got great ideas, but you're not a developer. I think they both meant the same thing. But either way, build your app with Celo. We're happy to have you here. So thanks for joining. Our mission is to build a financial system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone. So the idea is anything that has to do with financial inclusion, getting banking out to people in marginalized communities that don't have them. Any and everything we try to build speaks to that general mission, and it breaks down into a few key pillars I'll mention later. It has a lot to do with the types of things from what we're talking about to what bounties we have offered and what apps you'll see throughout our ecosystem. But if you do want, you can follow Celo.org on Twitter and Celo Devs, or find us in chat at chat.celo.org. All those links are available at Celo.org in the footer. So join any community you'd like. And I'm Joe Nizia. I'm on the developer relations teams at Celo. I've been here for about a year now. And I joined originally because I fell in love with the mission, had some technical background. I've been coding on Web3 since and just trying to help people get excited about the project. Along with me, we'll be going back and forth between us, but we have Nestor, he's on the team too. So we'll see him in a little bit. He's on developer relations and happy to have him. Yesterday, for those who missed it, we called it Connect the World with Celo. It has to do with the big initiative we have for building on and off ramps around the world. You can find links to all of it. If you do go to this presentation, it's all further up. We won't cover it in as much detail today, but we just did an overview of Celo, some hackathon details, and a little higher level overview of like why Celo is important. Introduced the Celo tech stack and did a basic overview of like what are all the tools to expect that you need to get set up with, but didn't really go into the code so much. What we had said is that day 2 is going to be ReFi for the people with Celo, how to make an impact, talking ReFi stablecoins mobile, sending transactions with Celo, and kind of thinking like a founder to prepare your pitch. But after talking with a lot of people yesterday, a lot of really good conversations. But what I found out is that the whole making an impact and ReFi conversations, those are great for fireside chat styles. And like, let's talk about it. We'll have plenty of time to do that. The same as thinking like a founder and preparing your pitch. But what's going to be hard is to actually just go ahead and demo the code. And people need the code to build these apps. So we did pivot a little bit to make it a little more technical to get you up and running. Even if you're new, you should be able to go ahead and start building. And with that, yeah, we're going to quickly deploy using Remix and show you some things with that. Nestor's going to come up and show you about sending transactions, how you can do that. And it works with something on Celo called Contract Kit. And since we're EVM compatible, also works with Ethers and Web3.js. And I guess I did skip that part, but yeah, Celo is a fully EVM compatible layer 1 blockchain, focus on mobile first apps to build apps for financial inclusion. And then last, you can get started with Hard Hat Truffle, same as any Ethereum tool, but we built this thing called the Celo App Starter, which will help give you sort of like a full package of what you need to get up and running pretty quickly to build a progressive web app that should hopefully help you with the hackathon. So that said, I did promise those topics, so I'm going to try and do these things called fireside chats with mentorship. Come to us all through the next 3 days to talk anything about making an impact, ReFi stablecoins, if you want to prep your pitch, and any technical support, obviously. But with that said, I guess one more quick recap. We got a whole bunch of prizes. Anyone who's joining, we got ecosystem prizes. I knew this was a kind of a complicated slide, but basically Ecosystem prizes, bounties, impact, bonuses, and tracks. A lot of these are general hackathon prizes. We have our own specific ones highlighted in the top row in green. Community commerce, regenerative economics and climate, and UBI and financial inclusion apps. We're really trying to make people want to build apps that have to do with those three topics because, again, it aligns with everything we're trying to do at Celo. On the main Miami Hackathon pages, you'll see all the lists of the bounties, why they exist, what you can do to win, and happy to talk about them in more detail later on. And last thing I'm excited about is Celo ecosystem prize at the top, where it's the top 3 dApps that come in for Celo. We have this thing called Celo Camp, where it's essentially an incubator / accelerator where they're going to take your app idea, put you through some additional training, mentorship, funding, and get you started with your app so you can take it to the next level. So it's like kind of a whole community coming around it to see how you can build that app into something bigger and better. So we'll see who wins and where it goes from there. But let's start building on Remix. And I wanted to start with this because it can get really confusing to say, okay, here's a whole ton of tools like this. I went through this chart yesterday. If you want to build in your browser, you can use Chrome, Remix, MetaMask. If you want a local environment, you need all these tools. On your mobile, you need all this. Here's all the dApps. And I think it's a fun chart, and it kind of helps you figure out where you're going to start. But to hone in on this browser one, it's the simplest and quickest way to deploy a dApp on Celo is with Remix using MetaMask. So I just wanted to start at least there to say, this is what you would do to get started and fast. And then we'll get progressively a little more detailed and get you set up in more of a local environment. I'm going to try sitting down, if that's all right. Hopefully everyone can hear me still. But the first thing I wanted to do is connect. Actually, before connecting MetaMask to Celo, I'll just show you, given that I already have that, from the presentation, there's a link to this thing I'm calling the Celo Developer Guide. I use this as my little launch pad of like all my favorite links, places to go, and things to do to help me code. So here's everything related to Celo. Here's everything for coding. Here's hackathon links, and here's some places to get ideas. But basically from there, you don't need to use this if you know Remix. You just go to remixproject.org. This is their main website, and then you can say start coding online. So if you've never been here before, this is what it'll look like for you. And there's a workspace. I just named it Celo Miami. Yours will just have some kind of name. But in here, you have some setup contracts, some tests, and some scripts. But basically, say you don't know what's going on yet. A general introduction is this contract stores a number and then retrieves the number. It uses Solidity, which is Ethereum's programming language, and you'll use Solidity when you're programming on Celo. What this is saying is that you're setting a variable called number, and then you have a function that stores that number and one that retrieves the number. I'm already, sorry, there's all sorts of stuff on the screen. I have MetaMask so that it's already connected to Celo on, I can pick between the networks. Say in this case, I'll switch to testnet. And what you do here for any Remix contract is you just go ahead and you compile the contract that you wrote. Once it's compiled, you check some other things. You select injected Web3 provider, which basically MetaMask is an injected Web3 provider. So whatever network you're connected to, that'll get you set up. And in this case, this is how you're going to check that this is the Alpha Horus testnet blockchain number. I'll show you how to find it if you need it in the future, but that's how you're going to know you're connected to Alpha Horus. And then you can just go ahead and deploy it. What's cool about Remix is once this deploys, you don't have to worry about one, setting up your local environment, but two, getting all the front end involved. So how I said this stores and retrieves a contract or a number. You can just go over here, open it up. You can store that number. Since you're writing to the blockchain, it's going to be considered a transaction. So you confirm that. And then once it goes through, you can go ahead and retrieve that number. And down here, it's kind of small, but it's showing, I wrote the number 8. So now 8 is showing up here. And that's the basic idea of right away, you already deployed something on Celo. And then from there, you can just get more and more complex. As a quick note for people that don't have MetaMask set up with Celo, what you do is in the settings, you go to networks, and you would do this for any EVM blockchain, but in this case, you can add the Celo network. It'll take you to this, and you need to specify a network name, RPC URL, chain ID, currency symbol. And as another part of this guide I had made, the reason I like it is you can just go to MetaMask, and all that information is provided here. So if you want to connect to mainnet, you would use these. Testnet is these. Baklava is these. The difference between these two is Alpha Horus is a developer testnet, which is, if you're making an app, just use that. But if you care, Baklava is for the validators. So that would be the extra steps you take to set up with MetaMask within Remix. If you're struggling a bit with it at first, I can help you. Yeah.
Sorry, what's the difference again?
I'm sorry?
You said one of the points for developers, what's for validators?
Yeah, for validators. I actually don't know a ton about it. They just use it for when they're making updates to the protocol to test if the blockchain is going to work without breaking it. Because all the validators need to come together to sort of like agree on what the changes are going to be, test it there, and then before implementing it on the main chain, they've come to find out whether it works or not, and they fixed all the bugs. So that's sort of separate for the validators. And since the developers want a test net that's not randomly breaking because the validators doing their work, there's a separate test net for developers. And in our case, it's Alpha Horus. The reason I have these names, I mentioned it. Hey, sorry, I had a Deborah. I'll just walk by. He might be able to walk in for a second and hang out with us. But yeah, the reason named Alpha Horus, Baklava, they're all desserts from around the world. So you'll notice that a lot. I think I mentioned yesterday, but yeah, desserts, like we had hard forks. There's the donut hard fork, the espresso hard fork, a lot of dessert stuff. And then there's also this language called Esperanto, where it's like a made up language from, I think, the 80s or something. And Celo, they like that. So Celo means purpose in Esperanto. There's things like Plumo is our light client. It means feather because it's light like a feather, a light client. So yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, the best way, I'm not sure where to link it, but if you're in the presentation, which if anyone did want it, you can scan here or bit.ly/Celo Miami. Yeah, I'll give it a second in case people want to find it. And then once you're there, we got a whole bunch of slides going on, but slide 93 has links to the docs, the Medium with all the blogs that I've tried to write these tutorials out in, and the developer guide is where you'll get to that notion.
Slide number, sorry.
93. So from there, I guess going back, one tool I do like is at some point, okay, we launched a storage app. Nice. It's not going to be your hackathon project, but where's maybe like a good place to get started to figure out new contracts? So what I like is going back to this launchpad. Open Zeppelin is a security-based set of smart contracts you can use to get started writing your whatever you want. And a lot of times it's kind of intimidating to get started from scratch. So what I like about this is in their docs, they have something called the smart contract wizard. So you can go ahead and click, say you wanted to make a token, we'll name it, I don't know, Miami. You make a symbol for your token. You can mint a certain amount of that token, and it's pre-populating the code for you over on the side. So it can't do everything for you, but it does get you started. And then say certain features, you want people to be able to mint more, burn more, whatever it is. You have this, and it actually has a button to say, just go ahead and open that in Remix again. And once it has, similar to what you've seen before, you now have an environment that's just the contract you built for yourself. It's importing all the right stuff. It says Celo Miami was the name of the contract. It's an ERC20 contract, which is just a standard for creating tokens. And it has some of the stuff you put in, like there's 1,000 of them. It's called Celo Miami, MIA. And from there, similar to before, you can compile the contract. Once it's compiled, in this case, go back to picking injected Web3. These are a few of the contracts that came together to create all of the features you just picked, but pick Celo Miami to deploy. This will pop up, and same as before, you can confirm it. And now you have in a second, a new contract with all the features and functions and everything you'd want to use to start working with that smart contract. So any dApp is going to start from a smart contract. And while you do want to make your mobile focused front end and all that, it really helps to just quickly iterate on what you want your features to be, because then you can go ahead and code like, all right, I want 100 tokens instead. I want it to be called Celo instead, or whatever you want, and then just redeploy it and mess with it from there. One thing I didn't show is after deploying anything, what's cool about blockchains is you can view all the information. So go ahead to our block explorer. This is where you can find all the blocks being made, all the transactions, all the smart contract code, and whatever's going on with the Celo blockchain. In this case, switch to the testnet that you deployed on, search for the contract address, and now you're viewing, hey, you successfully created the contract. Here's all the transactions that have to do with it. And now you're starting to see the flow of what's going on with your contract. One thing I did want to show you is I have it where, let's see, since it's so cheap for gas on Celo, which I guess I didn't mention to people that came today, but basically things really fast block times, so fast transaction speeds, really low gas fees. It's like less than a tenth of a cent. And then it's carbon negative, which doesn't apply to what I was about to say, but it's a cool thing about the Celo blockchain. But what that means is that you can deploy your contracts rather than needing $100 or $200 on Ethereum or some other places. It's less than a penny. So you can just go ahead and deploy straight to mainnet if you want. In my case, I've got a couple Celo in there. I think I did.
How was the blockchain that perfect? Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I'm sorry?
How was the blockchain perfect?
How's it carbon negative? What was that?
How was it carbon negative?
Yeah. A couple decisions that were made early on. Let's see. There's a blog that explains it really well. I can link you to. But for one, say a big first thing is proof of work versus proof of stake. Proof of work, while coming along and has its own benefits, is energy intensive and takes a lot. So even when we forked Ethereum, it was proof of work, and I guess still is, infinitely waiting for ETH 2.0. But until then, yeah, you say let's go proof of stake. So that's one. Let me see. We have Celo.org. Proof of stake. It's a carbon negative blockchain. It's here and it's Celo, and they kind of describe. Sorry, this is helping me refresh too on it. Carbon negative.
If you like micro nonsense.
I'm sorry?
You guys like micro nonsense thing? That one?
I can't really hear you very well.
Carbon nonsense.
Yeah, that would be part of it. So I was thinking I would find. Do you mind if I chat with you quick after? I'm not finding. I don't have a good answer in mind, and I was looking for the blog. Let's see. All right, I'm good. I'll look into an answer there when I'm off my 30 minutes. I'll come back with that answer for you a little better, because I'll just sort of loosely not give a great answer, and I'd rather have a chance to tell you straight up. So going through back to, starting to get a whole lot of tabs. Yeah, so we're on the mainnet now. Just go back to, you can erase the old contract, deploy again. Similarly here, we've got the contract, you can mess with it. And then you can go back to the block explorer. And this time look for it on mainnet. Look for your contract address. And now this is that same contract, but it's live on the Celo mainnet. It only costs not very much, and you're good to go. Do whatever you want. One thing you'll see that I do like, if you're familiar with block explorers, is you can see all the code for any contract you deploy. But in this case, what you need to do is verify the contract, it's called. And you'll see in a minute why. There's different ways to do it. If you have it on a local device like environment, you'll need to upload the source files and all that. But from Remix, they actually let you do a thing where there's a Sourcify plugin, a verifier, and then since you're on the Celo mainnet, you can look that up, give the contract address that I copied from the Block Explorer, and verify the contract. And the reason that's important is now there's a contract repo in Sourcify where anybody could see this code, mess with it, bring it into their own Remix environment. Same for you. Anyone else who's verified their contracts, you can use those as your starter code and find them and use that. But then aside from that, now when you refresh this screen, instead of just being a bunch of gibberish, it's your smart contract code, all the different 5 or 6 contracts that were imported from the Open Zeppelin Explorer, and the ABI for your smart contracts, which is what you use to interact once you bring this into a local environment. If you want to start making transactions, interacting through JavaScript with an existing smart contract, this ABI plays a big part of that. And it's all here for everybody to see. And it's part of what they mean that when you deploy on a contract that's verifiable, everyone can see what's going on. It's not hidden. So it's a useful thing to do for a couple reasons. And it also helps everybody see what you're working on and what you've done. You can also use this outside of what was available in Remix to interact with the contract in the same way. It's called Celo Miami, Symbol, MIA, and any other of the functions are available through here. So I guess that was 30 minutes. That's about what I wanted to show. Hopefully that helps. I didn't go through totally every step for getting started with MetaMask, but those are definitely ways if you want to quickly start developing, start iterating. Remix is a great way to start. So just want to make sure you had some sort of idea of how to get started. So from there, I guess Nestor can come up and he'll show you how to start working with transactions. And I'll be looking at the carbon negative stuff. First 5 minutes, I'll be going through that answer. So thanks for asking. All right, cool.
Wait, oh, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Now you already explained basically how we can create one smart contract, how we can deploy it to mainnet, and at the end, the result is the ABI. We have the public key and the ABI. Basically, with that, we're gonna work now, but before we're gonna dissect transactions and how they differ between Celo and Ethereum, right? So we're gonna go now. For the code, well, what we're gonna do right now is like we're gonna structure a Celo transaction. Let me move this here. We're gonna, as I mentioned, describe how and why it's different from an Ethereum transaction. We're gonna send some Celo with different libraries, Web3.js, Ether.js, and ContractKit. And we're gonna send some stablecoins also with this library. So just to remember what we saw yesterday, we have these Celo tools. And basically, in a nutshell, the SDK, that is the one that we're gonna use right now, is basically a wrap of the core smart contracts that define, let's say, the stable coins at Celo, CUSD, Celo Real, Celo Euros, so on and so forth. Because if we don't use the SDK, we can just, get the ABI and get the different public keys, but that's, take time. So the SDK is easy makes developer life easier. Then also we have the Celo CLI, that it's a library for command line interface, the Block Scout that you already use, and we're gonna use it too, in order to dissect what the transactions were. We're gonna use Alpha Horrors, and also we are gonna use as RPCs, either 4Node, QuickNode, or Data Hub. use contract kit will be used for with Joe. Joe is going to use that for a React application, and the graph we can describe it. We described it yesterday that basically depending on what our UX is going to be, we will need to create a graph implementation of one smart contract and why. Because if we don't use this kind of mechanism like graph, we end creating these loops, in our UX, and it's not well performance. But it will depend on the use case. Yes.
Is use content
Use the SDK, you mean?
Yeah.
No. The thing with the SDK, as I mentioned, is like we have the Celo blockchain. On top of it, there are the core smart contracts that define how the Celo blockchain will work. Let's say we have the stable part, right? Which is going to define how much, at what time, and when the stable coin is going to swap for Celo in order to maintain the peg with the dollar. So there are a few of smart contracts, and you can, go ahead and copy the API and the public key, and then import that in your project. You can do that, but the SDK is to abstract that, right? You're just gonna use kit, stablecoin, and I don't know. I want to send 10 Celo dollars, right? So that level of abstraction, that's about the SDK. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, as I was saying in the graph, it will depend on the use case, but it's a cool tool. And the wallets, we have the Celo wallet, the Celo terminal, Celo extension wallet, MetaMask, Valora, and Ledger. Right now, what we're going to use is command line, and also to sign MetaMask. And the Ethereum and Celo tools, because Celo is EVM compatible, we're going to use Solidity, Truffle, or Hothat, and Remix. Right. So the GitHub repo is going to be here.
Sorry, is it Truffle and Hothat, or is it or you choose, right?
Yeah, you can choose. I mean, it's up to you. Basically, the two are very good frameworks to work on your smart contract. They are different, but
I just want to make sure that you didn't need both.
Yeah, okay. You can decide which one you want. All right, so let's go. The GitHub repo is going to be this one: github.com/Nestor Celo lección transacciones. And one thing, because we are a few people who speak Spanish, one thing that I did is that I created this repo bilingual. So yeah, the lesson is going to be in English and Spanish, the README and the lesson. So yeah. So we can clone this repo. We're going to have it here. And basically, we're going to start to explain. So first, what we're going to do is, install the dependencies, jar install. We can create accounts with this script that is in create account. It's very easy. What is going to happen is that we will need to copy this private key into the .env file. As you might know, we should use that library in order to never upload our private keys to the GitHub repo, And we are gonna, if we are creating one account, we want to have some funds, and there is a faucet. So we can use this faucet, just put the public key, and you're gonna receive Celo dollars, Celo euros, and Celo. Right? Then we can use an RPC, which we can use the one by default from Celo, or we can use an optional one, which is Figment. In Figment, if we want, we can go here to this link, and we're gonna sign on, and we're gonna create one account, and we're gonna get one Figment API key, and we're gonna put that in the ENV. So the ENV will have the private key and the Figment API. Once we have our account, we have installed the packages, we are gonna go to different lessons. So as you wish, you can go to lessons underscore English or Spanish. So first, what we're gonna do is import the libraries. The libraries that we're gonna use is Web3, and we're gonna use the contract kit, the one that we have mentioned before. We are gonna use Celo Ether wrapper, and we're gonna use the ENV to get the private key and the Figment API if we want. And also we're gonna use EtherKeys. As I mentioned before, we're gonna use these different libraries in order to test for transactions. So we are gonna create an instance of Web3. And the way to do it is to send the RPC. The RPC that we're gonna use is the one by default. Here is where we can use Figment as an API, as an RPC. Then with that Web3 instance, we create the object of contract kit. Aside from that, we need to have our account. So we need to read that from the .env file. We are going to get the private keys, and we're going to create the account from that private key. Then we are going to see what Ethereum transaction looks like. Let's say that we are going to send to this address from the account that we could have created. We are going to send, we're going to use this chain ID. Like Joe mentioned, this is the chain ID of Alpha Horse. If you're going to deploy this to mainnet, it's going to be a different one. We could send some data, and we are going to send Celo, and the gas price is 0.5 GWay. So if we want to see how a Celo Ethereum transaction is this one. Let me go to the bottom. All right, so this is an Ethereum transaction, and we will have the message hash, the VRS. This is used for the elliptic curve signature digital elliptic curve signal digital signature. Basically, this is the way how blockchain works in order to prove that a person owns that private key, right? We have the raw transaction with, if we decompile that, basically it's going to show what is going on, basically all this information from to gas, whatever. And we're going to have the transaction hash. The transaction hash is the hash that we're going to use to go after if once we send it to what a specific blockchain and read and view, you know, what happened with that transaction, and we're going to get all the detail for it. All right, so this is how an Ethereum transaction looks like. Now let's see how an Ethereum transaction looks like. If you see, we have more attributes. The main difference will be these three: gateway fee recipient, and fee currency. Gateway fee and gateway fee recipient is a feature to provide some fees to the full nodes. If you remember, maybe if you came yesterday, if not, I'm going to remember again. We have 3 nodes at Celo blockchain. We have the validators, we have the full nodes, and we have the live grants. The full node, the validators are the ones that are going to change the state in the blockchain. The full nodes are the ones that verify these transactions of the validators. And the quick nodes, the light nodes, are going to be these nodes that could be implemented into mobile devices like Valora. So this is not activated at the moment, but in the future could be a fee for these full nodes. All right. So the one that is important for us today is to see this fee currency. And what does that mean? It means this is a public key of a smart contract that points to the Celo dollars smart contract published on the Alpha Horse test network. And what does that mean? In Ethereum, like we see here, let's say that we want to send some DAI, some CUSD, some stablecoin. We need to send that, but also we need to have gas, and the gas is in ETH. So we need to have two tokens. In Celo, you can say, okay, I want to send $10 and I want to pay the fee with Celo dollars. Makes sense, right? So this is how you do it. And let's see how it looks. It looks like this. And basically what we're gonna focus on, as I mentioned, is these features. Just to go to how to sign a transaction, a Celo transaction, as you can see, we are using the kit, which is contract kit. Let's see. We created the instance from Web3. We already sent the RPC. We created the kit, and then we're going to use it to get the wallet because we already sent the private key to get the account. So we have the Celo wallet, and then we're going to sign that transaction that we created. Everything clear, sir? Is there any question? Just let me know. All right, so that's how a Celo transaction looks like. Now, let's send some Celo. So in order to send some Celo, we are gonna get the nonce. And why is that? Because in blockchains, basically, if we don't have that nonce implementation, basically anyone can send from one specific account, imported in many machines, several transactions, and the nodes won't know which one is first, right? It's going to be confused. So the nonce is for that. The nonce is one number that is going to be incremented every transaction, and it's going to know, okay, I received like 5 transactions at one time. Okay, but this nonce is 1, this other is 2, so on and so forth, right? And it's going to validate in accordance to that. Then we are going to define the amount that we're going to send, and we can use the utils, Web3 utils. And you might see Ether, and you might wonder, okay, why? Because, I mean, we're going to send Celo, right? The thing is that Celo is EVM, so basically the libraries are compatible, so we use Ether for that. Ether, 0.1 Ether, in this case, is 0.1 Celo. Make sense? All right, so we're defining the amount, 0.1 Celo, and we are going to construct the transaction. We're going to say, okay, we want to send 0.1 Celo to this account from the account that we have in .env. We're going to pay this gas. We don't want to pay more. We are going to get this nonce, and this nonce is the nonce that we're getting from the account, right? We're reading that from the blockchain. We're going to use this chain ID saying, okay, I want to send this in Alpha Horse network. In this case, because we're just sending some Celos, we don't need to send some data. We are going to use that for interactive smart contract. And let's say we want to call one specific function in one smart contract, and yeah, then we need to use the data. And the value, that is going to be 0.10 Celo. As you might see here, this is how you can define in the fee on which token you want to pay the fee currency. This is optional. You can do it. If you don't do it, you're going to pay the fee with Celo. Easy. Then we're going to use the kit to send the transaction that we already created. We're going to do an await because it's blockchain, decentralized, and we're gonna wait for the receipt of that transaction. And finally, we are gonna get the transaction hash. That is the one that we got here. Yeah, we're gonna console log that, and we're gonna point that to the Alpha Horse block scout in order to see what that transaction was, right? So yeah, let's do it. So we have the transaction hash. We have this link, and we can see here that we sent 0.1 Celo from this account to this account, right? Yeah, this is all the detail. Right now has been 23 seconds, and is the block this number, and has been confirmed by 5 blocks right now. All right. Is there any question with the Celo transaction right now? Nope. It's clear? Cool. Now what we're gonna use is, okay, we already sent some Celos, but you know, you guys are talking a lot about these stable coins, you know, about this rocker, about the kit. You know, how can we use it in order to read the balance? That's what we're gonna do. We are gonna use the kit, and we're gonna use the kit in order to abstract, you know, this the implementation of, instead of having, you know, the API and this public API of these stable coins or the Celo, just use the kit. And we can use the kit by doing await kit.contracts.get gold token. Gold tokens means Celo. Why? Before, when Celo started, Celo was called Celo Gold, right? And the community say that they wanted to change the name from Celo Gold to Celo to make it more easier. But the library was created, so that's why we get this get gold token. So here we're gonna get the public key for the smart contract for Celo, for Celo. And here we're gonna have the public key for the Celo dollars. Then we're gonna use that that smart contract account in order to get the balance of this address that we are saving. Okay, we have this address, and we're gonna get, you know, this balance, Celo and Celo dollars. And then we're gonna just print the balance of it. So right now we have 200,2677 Celo and 469 CUSD. So if you don't believe me, we can try it. So there's the Celo dollar, Celo euros, and Celo, which are the numbers that we already showed. Right? Everything clear about how to get a balance using contracting, right? And now what we can do is another test to send Celo and Celo USD, Celo dollars. Here, what we're gonna do is, again, we're gonna get the address of the smart contracts of Celo and Celo dollars. We're gonna transfer from an address to an address one specific amount, and we're gonna send that from the account that we have at .env. This is a normal transaction that is very similar to Ethereum, right? This is very similar to Ethereum. And this one is the one that we can use to say, okay, I want to send, how much it is? I want to send 0.1 Celo, but I want to pay that with Celo dollars, the fee. So yeah, that's the way we do it. Then we need to put an await in order to wait for the blockchain to mine, to add those transactions. and then we're gonna console log the hashes, and then we're gonna read the balances. Okay, we have here the two hashes. This is the one that is just paying with Celo the fee and is sending 0.1 Celo, and this is the one that is sending 0.1 Celo but is paying the fee in Celo dollars. So yeah, this is not possible with in Ethereum. Cool. And now we're gonna use EtherDS, which is another library very used in the ecosystem. And how we can do it? We at the top we imported Celo ethers, so we can use Celo ethers, and we need to pass them the provider, and the provider is again the default RPC or the Figment RPC, wherever you want. We create the provider, we wait for it to be ready, and then we are gonna create a wallet by sending it the private key that we already have in .env together with the provider. We have now the wallet. And now with the wallet, we can send a transaction. And this is, as you can see, a simple transaction that is sending to this address 0.1 Celo. We have constructed the transaction, and here we constructed and we sent the transaction, and we here are waiting for the receipt. And once we have the receipt, we can get the hash. And once we have the hash, we can verify that in Blockstyle. So, yep, the same transaction with a different library. You have many flavors. The one that you pick is okay. All right, so this is about the lesson. Now, let's say, okay, but now I want to interact with one smart contract. How can we do it? All right, let's go to web page. We can do the jar install, and you can see here ERC 20 ABI. So Joe, before deploy one ERC smart contract, which is a fungible token. Yep, fungible token. And at the end, as I mentioned, we have the public key and we have the ABI. Basically, the ABI is the one that we need to integrate that into our UX in order to interact with it. We have that here. And we have a simple HTML. We have the index.js. And in this one, we are connecting to Celo to a provider, in this case, MetaMask. And you can see here that we are using, again, ContractKit. We are creating this instance of ContractKit. We get the accounts. We get the default account, which is the 0. And we are we are creating this object of CUSD contract. And we are gonna get the balance. Right? Right now it's connected with my account, my Celo account, and basically we are reading the balance, and we can send a transaction. The transaction will be in alpha port, and we're gonna send 0.01 CUSD, and yeah, that's an example on how you can use it. Joe is gonna use this into a React application right now. So guys, I wanted to explain how this Celo transaction works. I really want to know if you have any doubt to explain it. Doubts, questions? Is everything clear? Awesome, cool. Yo, your turn.
I know the transaction fees on mainnet are low, but in comparison to the no, are they close? Are they 10 times more on mainnet? So
We can see it. I don't know. You want to see it? Okay.
we'll find out.
All right.
Mister, do you mind grabbing him? I just set up everything to explain why it's carbon negative. He's right outside with the white hat. If you wanted to hear it.
Sorry.
The guy with the white hat outside the door who asked about why Celo is carbon negative. I prepped stuff to teach him, so I just wanted to have him.
The way on how
All right. I was just asking, since you're outside, I just spent my 30 minutes collecting what makes it carbon negative, get you some resources and figure out how to explain to it. So yeah, I was just asking you to, he wasn't in at the time, but yeah, so, all right, is my screen showing? Cool, yeah, one thing I noticed that I didn't share too much earlier because I was assuming a bit about what people came yesterday and what they heard, is what's going on in this developer guide thing. I did start with this Launchpad. It's just a bunch of links to help you get started, but honestly, it's almost a frightening amount of resources. It just keeps going and going and going based on whatever topic you want. But ideally, you start at the top as introduction. I tried to make it so it does actually make sense, even though it's a lot. Start with the basics, popular resources, some dApp examples, the explorers you'll use, wallets, reference materials for the SDKs. If you want to build on Celo, how to set up your environment, how to build a dApp, Ethereum tools that work, Celo networks you'll need, and it just kind of keeps going. Eventually you get more advanced. You want to start working with oracles, exchanges, lending markets, deal chasers, anything else. This is to show you links to how to integrate them where they're at and how to get started. And then eventually it gets to use cases. And the reason I started with this is I just made a new section called carbon negative based on your question. So thanks for asking that. Just added it while I was chatting. And down here, it's a little bit of description here, but with links that describe it in detail how exactly Celo became carbon negative. So I'll try to describe it the best I can. But basically, the one I liked best to start was this cryptocurrency for a beautiful planet article that I found. And basically, they broke it down into 4 steps, where it does start with the proof of stake consensus algorithm. But then there's additional things, carbon offsetting with each block reward, bounties for regenerative behavior, and natural capital-backed currencies. The proof of stake and everything, they describe in more detail going through with some nice graphs showing how it works. Certain ones like carbon offsetting with each block reward, I was just starting to digest it and understand it a little better, but basically money from block rewards is going into a carbon offsetting fund. Other things where they're talking about bounties for regenerative behavior would be things like what we're saying here today. Our bounties that we're giving out for Celo is hoping to incentivize people to build dApps that help regenerate the planet, given 1, our platform, and then 2, just the initiative you would have to fix certain things. Like in this case, maybe Project Ren is one of them, where it's a dApp that's integrated with Celo, or integrated probably isn't the right word, but basically, what do they do? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, it's part of just the carbon offsetting fund. Again, I'm fresh to it. I wish I had a better answer to it. All the resources are here now if you do want to check it out. I'm realizing that I need to polish up on this topic myself. Sorry?
I think you actually already answered my question.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
How do we access it?
Access this? I'll try and make a better link and I'll put it in the Discord. But again, real quick, if you do want to,
Did you make the link bigger? Because I can't still find it.
yeah, let me see.
That went to 94. So that was-
Yeah, go to. Go to this site.
Capitalization calculator.
Sorry?
No, wait, yes.
Yeah, the capitalization counts. So you can go to this website. That'll get you to this slide deck. I will, and in there's yeah, there's resources everywhere. But on slide 93, you'll have a link. So there's a Celo developer guide along with the blog and the docs. But I like the developer guide I made because the docs are somewhat all over the place. Hopefully a good resource, but there's a bunch of different topics. The blog, there's a bunch of different topics. It's a distributed set of companies, so there's just stuff everywhere. And I tried to make this guide as like a central resource for all. It's why it's not as much explaining things as much as it's just linking you to everything that you might need help with for different topics. So I guess I also promised we'd get started with Celo dApp Starter. So let's see. Let's do that. Basically, Celo dApp Starter is similar to what Nestor said. There's a lot of things you can do with Celo, but it is tough to know like how to get started and fast. And what this does is where Remix lets you in the browser launch a dApp and then sort of mess with it. This takes it the next step. Within your local environment, you'll now have a quick way to start adding smart contracts, adding JavaScript. Quick depending on what tools you're familiar with, but it is at least a jump start where your environment's set up for you. So if anything is missing when I go through this, I did make 2 blogs that'll go through each step. This one being set up your repo, create your local environment, all 8 steps to just have this live in your environment. And second, where if you want to start adding new things to it and customizing it, there's another blog with each step. Create the smart contract, changing the deploy script, your smart contract, and everything it'll take to then get it so that you'll make a local tunnel actually that you can watch your app updating live on your phone. And the idea is that you're making a progressive web app with React. There are other things that allow you to have your phone be live while you're developing if you use React Native and something like Expo. But there's just certain things that tend to break and fall apart when we're using that, and progressive web apps get the job done. So we stuck with that. And I guess I could just kind of walk through as it has it here. But the link to the repo is, oh, no, this is a live example of what you'll make actually. Similar to before, you can add, it's just that storage example. You can connect to your wallet. When you're done, you'll be able to read it. You have a greeter contract. You have some stuff that's reading accounts. And that's what we'll build, but locally. So project is here. The way I have it in the tutorial, I'll just go through here, is you clone the template. If you don't have access to cloning the template, then you can just go ahead and git clone it from the code they give. Let's say Miami, make it public, create the repo. This will get it on your local GitHub. I'll clone that locally, open my terminal. I guess I should make this bigger for everyone. And then git clone. This will bring it locally for you. CD into it. And then from there, you can go ahead and open the project. There's a couple more things you'll need to do to set it up to have it on the website, but we'll just step through those in a second. But basically, there's this packages folder with all your hard hat stuff, which is going to be your backend, your smart contracts. React is the whole front end of the app, what you need to connect it to, and some stuff for the graph and the subgraphs. Other than that, some of the descriptions are in the README, so you can just learn it from there. Probably doesn't look as nice as it does when you just look at it on the actual GitHub. It's this README here. And what it does say to get started, I just kind of continued with in this blog. So going through it, let's see, we cloned it. One thing is this npm use command. Basically, working on Celo, you need Node version 12. And it's set up with a script in here that from your terminal, you can just do npm use. And it, sorry?
You need to follow this after
12 exactly. Maybe 12.22 it looks like. But yeah, for whatever reason, that's what works with the network, and you just have to switch to it. It might work. Nestor, you might have said it can work in later versions if you do it.
My computer, I have to disable that. Like, you need to go when you control the package. There's a restriction in order to use no flow. So I remove that because it crashed in my.
I tried to run it last night.
Oh,
Okay.
So those
Yeah.
package remove that line of code and reduce it.
Cool. So from there, I'll just go through it like I was reading the blog for the first time. But you see the into packages hard hat, which is going to take you to this, where you can go ahead and deploy your contracts. And to do that, it's using, oh wait, sorry. From there, go ahead and install the dependencies. Looks like I have them. For yours, it might take a couple seconds. It'll install some stuff. You're going to want to create an account that you'll be able to view from MetaMask. Probably shouldn't show my Slack. Let's see. Create an account. This is another script that was pre-made for you. It'll make a private key that you can import to MetaMask, and then your account address, which you can use to fund the wallet. So in that case, go MetaMask. What do you see? Account, private key, import, and now you've got 0 Celo in there. So similar to when we were using Remix, you want to go to your account address. For me, back to my, sorry, I know I'm clicking around on a lot of stuff, but I hope the general idea is getting across. Go back to the faucet. It's part of what I have in that, those quick links. And this faucet is actually a way to send test funds to your account. So then you have money to go ahead, deploy contracts, mess with it, make transactions, or whatever it is you want to do.
Do you put that channel into this?
Mhm.
That would be the best place.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, and then if we're not like getting back to, I'll try. I'll see exactly. There's so many channels. I'm not sure exactly where people are asking questions. But yeah, there's like a hackathon channel, a developers channel, and I'll be in there and can hopefully ask stuff. And while we're here for the weekend, I'll just be here in person too. But all right, cool. So this is the account I had made. The 0xAA is the same as the 0xAA. And now after giving it the funds for the account, it's available here, which the reason I had to do that was so I can go ahead and deploy a contract. And back to the blog we were working with. This was the step where we funded the account. You got your private key, kind of skip through some stuff here. But basically, Yarn deploy is set up so that you run it, and it's going to deploy some contracts that were pre-made for you. And again, it's that greeter contract that I showed you on the interface, the storage contract, and an Oracle contract. So going back, it's deployed it. If we do want to go back to the Block Explorer to check it out, same as before, now it's live on the testnet. And we can see we just deployed this contract. We can go through and check our actual account address if we want to do that separately and see what's been going on there. And we'll see that we actually deployed what happened here. All right, not sure what I did wrong. It was supposed to show me that I just deployed 3 contracts with this account. Doing something strange, but I don't want to get hung up on it. So yeah, you can check out the contracts you deployed and keep on moving. Let's see. If you ever make changes to your contracts as you're iterating with them, you can create new contracts and it'll deploy them with Yarn deploy. But if you ever make changes to an existing contract, you can do Yarn deploy reset, and it will redeploy your contracts with the changes you made. Otherwise, if you have a file with like greeter.sol and you made updates, then you just do Yarn deploy. It'll assume you've already deployed that contract and not register for it and create a new one. So Yarn deploy reset if you need it. Let's see. Now that we have the back end, we can go ahead and start the front end. And in this case, it's in that React app. So see, get out of there, cd into React app. And then again, if you don't have them, you can yarn install for the dependencies. Already up to date, I didn't need to do that. And then yarn dev. And from there it started. I know it's a couple steps. It goes a little quicker when you're just running through it and you kind of have the hang of it. And I'm kind of trying my best to explain it as I'm going. But at this point, this is live localhost. I've got my account with all the addresses showing. You can see your CUSD, C Euro, ETH, and Celo from your accounts. This is a little less than 5 because this is what we use to deploy the contract. It takes a little bit of gas fee for that deployment. And then you can go ahead, say you wanted to write a value like we did in Remix. Go ahead and update it. It'll check for your wallet, just like Remix did. You can confirm that. And when it's done. All right, it wrote to the contract. You can view it in the Explorer, see all the details of it, and then go ahead and read it. And just like in Remix, except it's a live app, you can do in your local environment now. The last step I think we had in here is skip through a couple of these. One last cool thing I wanted to show. Oh, some of it for customizing it, but I redid that in another post that goes into a lot more detail. But there's this thing called a local tunnel you can add. So where you're making a port that instead of viewing it from your computer, you could open it up on your mobile phone and then just see how it's working live as you're coding it. And to do that, you would run this command. I guess in a new place, cd. So React to the front end, run it. Not sure how long it takes. It's usually kind of quick. But basically it'll give you a URL once it's done running, and using that URL from whatever device is how you'll access it.
Is that only accessible on the same?
I think so. Yeah. All right. So it's promise it works. Maybe we'll come back a little later to see how that did. But in the meantime, I'm getting too many windows open. If you wanted to go ahead and customize it, what do you need to do? You need to know a little bit about Celo, React, Solidity, Hardhat, Material UI, and use Contract Kit are like the main focuses. Links to all of them. Love linking the stuff and finding out. But we can kind of go side by side, and I don't know if we can go ahead and customize it fully in 15 minutes, but maybe. But say step 1, you go ahead and create your smart contract. In this case, I did it where it's like you're making one called Messenger instead of Greeter, so it's as similar as possible to an existing dApp, but enough that you're getting the hang for the types of things to look out for and what to update. But in this case, yeah, make something called messenger.sol, and we'll just copy over Greeter to start. From there, we have that basic functionality of the read and write, but we'll make it our own thing. So I don't know, instead of messenger, new message, whatever it is you want to update to make it your own contract. But for now, let's see, I might have had the repo somewhere too. I might just be able to copy. Nah, trying to be quick, but all right. So this might not be working at the end, but it's still all the steps. Once you do have the smart contract you want, you're going to want to go to your deploy script. That's what is allowing when you do yarn deploy for it to deploy the different smart contracts. Is essentially it has to recognize that they're there and then go ahead and deploy it. So in this case, this part's deploying the Greeter contract. This one's deploying the storage contract, and you would make another one to deploy your messenger contract. Nothing else needed there. It's just a nice to have to go ahead and deploy. This, I guess I had it where you can go ahead and paste that code. Hey, I didn't add that. There is a message you can actually put in, like an argument that the contract takes. What I mean by that is in this constructor, it takes a string to set the initial greeting. And a constructor is a function that runs as you deploy the contract. So if you supply it with some text, then you can have some initial input. So where with the numbers, we're putting in 8 and then reading 8, you can have it that before you input anything, you just have a standard message that's showing to people. So you could add that argument if you would like. What's next? Oh, at the bottom of the deploy script, there is the exports. Essentially, you're making modules here, and we have 3 of them. So at the bottom, you've got the greeter, the storage, and you need a third one now of messenger. And I don't know why everything I paste in is breaking, but we can also just break it. So at that point, I think you're done with the deploy script. It should look like that. So good. Go back to our terminal. That still didn't do anything. So I'll get back to you about what is up with that local tunnel. Yarn deploy. Oh God. All right. Starting to break down with the live demo. What happened there is I opened a new terminal. I didn't NVM use to go back to 12. So now it's not compatible. So back to NVM use. CD hard. Back to this hard hat. Yarn deploy.
Do you increase the font?
Huh?
Increase the font?
Oh yeah, sure. I think I'm trying to go through too quick and everything's breaking down on me anyway. So I'll keep it slightly higher because now that deploy didn't work and we've only got like a couple minutes left. I want time for questions, but I will be around to debug with you if you're doing it. But just to run through the rest, once you deployed it, you view it on the block starter. You can check your wallet. The gas will have gone down because you deployed a new contract. You can mess with it with the view the ABI, all the stuff like before in Block Scout. The ABI for your contract is going to be available here. And this is what you start looking at when you've got your JavaScript code and you want to interact with the smart contract that you just deployed. You're not technically tying your JavaScript to a smart contract. You're tying your JavaScript to a representation of the smart contract that you can then use to interact with the functions, and it makes all the calls for you. So if you see things like before I said there's that string named greet that you can use to set like the greeting, here you'll see a string named greet. And sort of one-to-one, as you learn to read like the slightly different syntax, you'll see it's just saying everything that your smart contract did. What else? Deploy on other networks. You can go ahead and deploy it on mainnet if you want. Some of the stuff with adding a new tab now, because what happened is you've got your Celo dApp starter, and a smart contract out there, but you don't have a front end where it's like showing that. So what you do about it is you have to go ahead and build that front end. And a couple of steps to do that, lose track of all the tabs I have open. Sure, it's of course, let's see. Where your component. Oh, all right. So you go to, the way it works in React is you have to create a component. So in this case, you go to your React folder, create components, and you go ahead and make a new one. In this case, I'll call it messenger contract.tsx. And instead of worrying about making the component exact right now, I just started with like, let's just get it wired up so you can get it showing as much as possible. And then after you actually see it on the front end, then we'll go ahead and add so it interacts with that smart contract. After making the component, similar to the deploy script, you have to go ahead and export that. So there's a file called index.tsx. You'll see all the other components that were already made are there. We just need to export ours. What happened? Export star from.
Here's a couple of rows.
Got it. So now it's exporting this component you made so that now from another file, you can read it in. And so where we want to read it in is into the page that's showing the navigation that you can click through those different tabs that are on App Starter. And that is in pages, index.tsx. Another big file, a lot to look through. If you're familiar with React, it'll be manageable. Let's see. So you want to go ahead and import the messenger contract, again, alongside the other ones. What I do when I'm reading through this is just kind of take note of where other contracts are doing certain things and just mimic it. So in this case, messenger contract. You got the other two contracts, and then you got messenger contract in there. And the reason we're calling it messenger contract, again, is because in index.tsx, it's exporting messenger contract. What's next? Now we'll add a new tab. We want to go ahead and make one of these things that actually shows the contract. And where that is a little bit further down. Here you can see the account tab, the storage tab, the reader tab. Now we'll have a messenger tab. We can just call it. Why is everything? Oh, I think the quotes are funny. Okay. And this over here, it's showing the ally props. It's just showing the order. So if you want 0, 1, 2, now 3, this will be the last one in line once we add it. What's that? Oh. Yeah, I think bringing it into medium, like, messed up a lot of the format. Yeah, notice everything I pasted. I didn't realize that. And now we want to go ahead and add the panel itself for, let's see if this one goes in. We've got the other two panels here. We're adding another one. Basically, this is using, I didn't mention it, but Material UI. So it's importing some of the stuff from this Material UI. It's a cool React library that makes it kind of look like Android apps. Easy to make mobile stuff. So let's go again, add the tab panel. Now that's available. Maybe it'll be showing already. Oh, cool. Messenger, nothing there because we didn't do it yet, but we've got the new tab. And the last parts are going to be just finally syncing it up and connecting. Should look like that. Shows on your local host. And then from there, it keeps going. I do only have 5 minutes left, so I want to kind of leave it for questions. This, I hope you see I'm scrolling through the blog, but it's like very detailed, line after line. I didn't want it. Sometimes it helps to just show it. Hopefully it wasn't too all over the place. I know I was moving fast, but yeah, read the blogs. They'll help a lot. They can get you set up. But basically the rest of it is just having that final connection between your front end and your back end. And it is a lot. It's how you make the final app, but it's also why I started with React. For anyone who's new, it's perfectly fine to work on your smart contract, have it somewhat accessible through the buttons, have the idea, and then put together like a pitch deck on like what your plan is, where you want to go with this, and how you'd like to build it out more. So depending on what you want to choose, you could use App Starter, you can use Remix, or you could just go straight with like a truffle project and a hard hat project. And similarly, if you do want to just start from scratch without the App Starter, I have a step-by-step guide, everything it takes to get started on Truffle. And then same with hard hat. So similar to these other blogs you're seeing, it's a walkthrough of every step for you. So hopefully it helps. If there's any questions, I guess we do have a couple minutes. Aside from that, we'll have all the ReFi talks, all the how to make a pitch deck talks on these kind of fireside chat things throughout the weekend, but I'll have to sort out what that means. But like I said, that would be everything for today though. But yeah.
Just briefly, can you describe how you would deploy this front end? I'm just not familiar with like having your split contracts in your like React builds. Like you still just build it for Celo. Like how would you put this live?
Deploy the front end to make it live. I think even in one of these tutorials, maybe I'll check in hard hat. Netlify or GitHub Pages are the two that I use. It's not like a decentralized front end, but if people aren't familiar. All right, I don't have it here. One of these is fine, but basically Netlify is a quick web hosting app that you can go and put sites live. And what you would do when you have this built and you're ready, you just deploy everything onto GitHub, push it, have it live there, and then make your Netlify account. It'll sync with your GitHub. You just choose the repo, and then it'll put everything live for you. It'll give you like sort of a fake website, like I don't know, my site, whatever. You can change it to something if you want. Yeah, there's not really any config problems. And then from there, you can go ahead, if you want to keep going with the website, go to Namecheap, get a domain, sync it to your Netlify like faked app. And once they're coordinated, then it would be like mysite.com, like exactly without like the weird sort of URL they give you.
The only thing that they turn out
Yeah.
is,
You see Celo
everything
mobile?
is like,
Mhm.
I want to know.
Oh,
Undefined.
do you mind if I? I'll just chat. I'll just chat with you. No, I was thinking maybe everyone would want to know.
I thought so, but then I didn't think of it.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I appreciate it. I'm sorry for early on. I was like, it's like a big
No, I'm
answer, but I really wanted to get it right.
I'm gonna tweet about that. I'm like, dude, no, literally, that made me so bullish on Celo.
Oh, really?
Because I'm like, that's customer service. I asked you a question, you literally made an entire note for me. That's my question. I love that.
Cool. I guess I'll stop sharing this real quick.
Oh, am I the last one?
I think so. Yeah, you made it. All right, thanks everybody for joining.
Bye, bye, everyone.
We'll see you soon. Let's see. I'll leave the meeting. But yeah, similarly for that page, I was pointing towards just under the carbon negative. There already was one for mobile.
Okay, I read this, and then it's mean like you can earn stake and blah blah blah. You can do that already on every other platform.
Yeah, that's not everything about Celo is only unique to Celo, but it's just something if it's not mentioned, people might wonder like if you can or can't.
That's a good point. Actually.
So yeah, there is some things that make it mobile is one, there's an idea of Valora was like a first big app on Celo. So for example, if you wanted to install it yesterday, I was just giving everyone free Celo on the Valora app. So that was
Wait, like
pretty
money?
easy. Yeah. So if you want to download Valora, you get free money. But basically the idea was, and it's in the initial white paper, that to make it more accessible for people to access things through mobile, they wanted it that you could just register, have it that your mobile phone number. So there's actually like a type of encryption that makes it so that you can sync your phone to it, and then now all your contacts you can just send money similar to Venmo. There's also a thing called Plumo, where another thing with blockchain is it's hard to sync them low quality devices with limited connectivity. But there's the idea of these light clients we have where you can host like the entirety of the needs you have for your blockchain on a mobile phone. Plumo, if you did want to read about it, is also
Say that again. Say that again.
Plumo. It's our ultralight blockchain client on Celo.
What does this mean, blockchain? What do you say? Actually, smarter?
Yeah,
Don't we all, man?
There's so many directions. I'm like, I don't want to bullshit. Be like, here's my half answer. But it's an ultralight client. Basically, right now, if you want to run like an Ethereum node, you need to install like the entire. It's about like a terabyte.
You say you can run a Celo node on your phone?
Almost. It's essentially. Eric, can you help me out with Plumo? How's it going? This is Eric. He's the head of our DevRel team. Can you help me explain Plumo real quick?
Oh yeah, Celo is well, it's an ultra lightweight client, and it handles a lot of the. So many times, like when you're trying to create transactions go outside, a lot of heavy lifting. Celo actually allows you to done all the work for Plumo, yes. It's still early, and there's a different concepts.
So how's Plumo different from like whatever it is?
So Plumo is more about the client that can interact with the blockchain. Separate, like it still connects to the same endpoint, but it basically uses information from all over from the like a whole bunch of, we have like 5 seconds to calculate.
My question is, this is you guys can also sell the block first. And he said, so how does Plumo mean?
Well, because the client is like ultra lightweight, like very lightweight, can work on the phones that are brand new, like iPhone, somebody's talking, they just got, or folks that are like in emerging markets, where like generally the phones are 3-4 generations. No, so no, it doesn't need to be. So if you connect with very little information, there's still a level of trust that has to happen. What's the phone doing? Well, the phone is just acting as a client in the well, you can send transactions. That's also with our we have iOS for those are for most people still use like React Native or like wrappers around. But Kumo's like I would say the direction thing we're going like that's the future for making it all like much more lightweight. So right now we have like we have these contract wraps some ledgers and we just reduced that by 30%. So we're just trying to get things down to be as small as possible because when you're running a computer, right, like you don't really pay attention to if you have an M1, you don't know what is running on it because it's still really fast. But like for anybody that's not on the leading edge, like best news computers, usually mobile users, where there's two constraints. One is the phone, well, there's three constraints. One is the phone maybe not that powerful. Two, data's expensive.
What is it that I can do with Celo that I can't do with Ethereum because it's well, that's how what am I doing?
What you're gaining is so you can do the same thing for you. So what you can benefit from is, and these things may change, but like right now we're doing it for shit. Earlier. So when that does like that'll make it a harder argument for us also gas. So let's say we're going to gas
Faster, but like that mobile first. What does that mean? Mobile first.
Well, these are good questions. So we talk about like inviting like
the phone number.
So there's a little bit about
so that's one example. Like so when you think about a mobile user, right? Like they may not, especially new people, right? Like, they don't have a wallet. They don't have to go get a wallet. And in many cases, like you make an account with well, you can what it'll do is actually create like an escrow. It'll hold some funds that are being sent in escrow. And until that phone number is verified to this, then it'll send those funds back to the wallet. So that's one example of like mobile first thinking in terms of like helping people onboard. I think that's really important. The next part of like fulfilling mobile first is like the native development, not using it and we're trying to get better. So we're trying to like provide native binders so we're building mobile apps. They're not calling out to some sort of JavaScript wrapper.
So that's good.
Yeah, those are just good.
Those are actually good.
I'm trying to figure out Kuma real quick.
There's no option. I mean, there's a perfect sense. Maybe like no one can stop you.
I don't have the YouTube open on my
Sure.
computer.
Yes, we can click on and
If you know, like, when the problem, I think the reason why I get it, no one can